Hi, beauty. Welcome back to the Way of Grace YouTube channel. And I will probably be putting this on the podcast as well at some point. So, hello if you're on the Rising Feminine Collective podcast. And today I was inspired to dive into a deeper conversation around feminine receptivity, especially because this is something that I have really struggled with in the past is the ability to graciously and easily receive. And I find in many of the women that I work with, they also have some initial difficulty in really restoring the true essence of their feminine design, which is innately receptive by nature. So, this is something that I work on significantly within my group spaces and my one on one mentorship. So, let's dive into this together, feminine receptivity and really awakening this innate receptivity that we hold as feminine beings. And I really deeply believe, and this is my personal belief, that the feminine deepens her receptivity when she remembers how deeply she is loved by God. I feel so much we've been conditioned into believing that we have to earn our way and prove our worth and really pursue and do in order to receive and be worthy of receiving. And this constant striving and really essentially performance based template has completely hijacked our innate sense of wholeness, of worthiness, of belonging, and receptivity, especially as women. So, a huge part of my work that I do with women is restoring their relationship with God to really then resurrect the fullness of their feminine essence and reclaim their beloved identity, which to me is truly just remembering your inherent worthiness, wholeness, radiance, and belonging in God, not through the illusionary, concept and perception of that through the world, like really reclaiming your wholeness as a cherished and chosen and beloved daughter of the Creator, and remembering that your worth gets to exist from that place and you don't have to reach for that outside of you or in the world itself. So that's why, I believe so much of our receptivity is really connected to this deep, deep belief of remembering how deeply you are loved and that you are not separate from that love, and that God, so yearns and desires to walk beside you and really allow you and invite you to rest in the fullness of love itself. And every blessing, every gift, every resource, every provision, in my opinion, is really given from God and moves through a variety of vessels, whether that is clients and money or abundance or opportunities, ideas, visions, whatever it is. It's all God given, and it gets to flow through these multiple channels that we are in a beautiful interaction and exchange with. But again, because of this striving and performance based template, we've often been conditioned to think, okay, well, I have to pursue and do or force and push or reach in order to receive. And what I'm here to remind you of is that your receptivity really arises from your divine beingness. I call this being the egg, and remembering that as a feminine being, you are the egg. We can quite literally think of our biological design in which you have a beautiful chalice of your womb, you have a uterus, you have ovaries, you have the beautiful egg that then co-creates with the sperm to create, a beautiful, beautiful blessing through a baby. But also, your womb isn't here to just birth physical children and babies. Your womb is really here to receive seed, which seed again can come in the form of values, of virtue, of ideas, of vision, of creativity, for then you to nurture that and receive that and let it flourish in your womb to eventually labor and birth that vision that God has given you, out into the world. And just like the egg doesn't go and chase the seed, and she doesn't go and chase the sperm, right? The sperm and the seed, it comes to her. She rests, she waits, she bees. And that's what we get to remember we're able to do as feminine beings. And as we really soften into deeper states of presence and beingness, we really do open ourselves to more deeply receive all that God wants to gift us. But if you're constantly pushing out, and I call this being the cock, if you're always pushing out and trying to penetrate and force and do all the things, well, you're not actually in your natural design of receptivity, right? You're then blocking the provision, the gifts, the clients, all of the things when we're in this template of more control and doing. And not saying that that doesn't work, because to a degree it does. And again, this is coming from a more, I would say, like shadow masculine template of like this constant doing and striving and achieving. And kind of, if you think of in the business realm, like that bro marketing, very penetrative, very forceful, like telling you the offer all the time, and doing it in a way that probably doesn't always feel good for our nervous system. But, I'm not going to lie, like that kind of strategy can work to an extent. But what I find it does to women is it causes burnout and fatigue and lack of fulfillment and satisfaction. And yeah, just general like, um, opposition to our nature itself. And I've experienced this, not that I was a bro marketer or, someone who really did a lot of forcing in my business, but there was times for sure that I was acting more from my ego and more from that sense of pressure and urgency versus, rest and spaciousness and beingness. And the result of that is so different than when we just let ourselves truly surrender into the fullness of our design and really let ourselves be the egg and allow ourselves to be pursued and essentially chased and penetrated by the seed, by the ideas, by the vision, by, whatever calling it is that God so deeply wants to plant, within your heart and within your womb. So being the egg is a really important thing and powerful thing for us to remember as women. And we get to remember that you don't have to reach in order to receive. And receiving itself isn't a passive act. It's actually something that requires deep presence. And I always say, to be filled, you must be emptied. So this means we're invited to really clear our internal clutter so that we are a clearer and cleaner vessel to then be able to receive. And this internal clutter can be your fears, your control mechanisms, your forcing and pushing, that more penetrative energy, any ways in which you're self-sourcing or even manically manifesting and trying to be in a more transactional relationship with God, your impatience, your entitlement, and any distrust with God and the masculine is essentially blocking your ability to fully receive. So again, we have to be present with our bodies, with the sensational energy actually moving in our body, and also really being aware and attuned to our current perceptions, because a lot of that is creating this clutter that's not allowing, the clarity and the vision and the ideas and the creativity to actually really beautifully flow through you. So, what I encourage women to do when they're starting to really deepen and really restore their feminine receptivity again, one of the first things I encourage them to do is to really slow down and receive their breath and receive themselves and receive, the sensational language of the body. So again, this seems really counterintuitive for many of us to do because again, we've worked from this template of thinking, okay, well, I have to pursue and I have to do in order to receive and make things happen. But it's really the opposite for us as women. So the more we really allow ourselves to sink into the spaciousness of the present moment and really just allow ourselves to be and receive our breath, our body, our hearts, our wombs, our sensational energy, and develop deeper relationship with that, the more we're then able to open ourselves to be in this deeper state of receptivity, right? If we're constantly rushing and controlling and acting out of urgency, again, you're in that more penetrative state. You're not able to be penetrated by what God wants to gift you. So for women, especially, we get to remember that innovation does arise from rest and from spaciousness and often from stillness. So this is why a big part of the feminine journey is really being in the space, really being in the stillness, really being in full restoration and not feeling like you constantly have to do, because again, that's going to burn you out over time. It's going to mess up your adrenals. It's going to affect your thyroid health. It's going to affect your digestive system, your hormonal health, all of the things. It's really counter to our innate biological design as women to always be going and doing and moving and creating. We get to honor our feminine cycles and feminine rhythms. And within that rhythm, we have a beautiful week every month, that we are really designed to rest and just receive and get quiet and reflect. Because again, it's from that space that ideas are planted, within your womb, that seeds are able to drop and come in. And then we get to nurture those things. And, the other parts of our cycle really support the growth and the nurturance and the expression of those seeds. So rest is powerful, and rest really helps you to restore your receptivity and deeper states of receiving. So the next thing I encourage women to do is to tend to any unhealed wounds with God and the masculine, because our distorted perceptions of God and the masculine, again, constrict our capacity to receive. And this is something that I explore, much more deeply inside of my group program Held and within my one-on-one mentorship space with other women, because again, I feel the deepest wound that we carry is the separation wound, and especially, separation from God, from our creator, which then has conditioned us into believing that we have to reach and look outside of ourselves for our wholeness and our worth and our belonging and our radiance, where again, that is not true, right? Your fullness and your wholeness really rests within you reclaiming your identity in God, right? And really allowing yourself to rest within his frame. But if we have distorted perceptions around God and, masculine principles, we're going to always kind of put ourselves in the position of either being God and trying to self-source and control our reality and do all the things on our own, or we're going to have a distorted relationship with masculine principles, which include, money and time and provision and clarity and guidance and direction, right? So we're going to be creating our own shields and armor, which we all do in some way, to protect ourselves and kind of continue that state of being controlling, which ultimately is not innate to our feminine design. We want to really go into a deeper state of softness and openness and receptivity and beingness, which doesn't mean you don't have discernment. And that's a conversation I'll bring in another day. But it does mean that to really receive, you can't have all of the shields and all of the armor up, which is, again, your control and protective mechanisms. So as we really deepen and restore our relationship first with God, which again, I see God as the highest masculine principle. And as we restore our relationship and really live within our relational oneness with him, that resurrects the fullness of love within ourselves. And we get to remember that God is the fullness of love, and we are so divinely protected and provided for and held and cherished. This then kind of re-anchors the remembrance of our inherent wholeness and worthiness, especially, as feminine beings, to remember you don't have to chase and reach in order to receive. You're really designed to be in a co-creative and collaborative partnership with God, which is a beautiful dance in which God is leading and you are listening and being present and following and being this beautiful open vessel to receive God's clarity, guidance, vision, direction, values, virtue, creativity, all the things that God wants to bless into your life. But if you're trying to just always do that for yourself, you're going to get really tired eventually. And you're probably going to get a little bit bitter and a little bit frustrated and quite exhausted. So healing our relationship with God and the masculine is a huge piece of restoring the fullness and the truth of our feminine design. And this is a process that takes time and trust and intimacy and grace and all of the things, which is why I go deeper into it in my more intimate spaces. But, one of the things that you can currently do is really just witness, what are my current perceptions of God and the masculine? What do I believe about God and the masculine? Who do I believe I have to be as a woman, right? In relation to God and the masculine, and just looking at what are some of the symptoms of those perceptions, right? Maybe that is like, okay, wow, I'm controlling because I don't believe God is really there for me, right? I kind of protect my heart because I don't believe, a masculine partner is going to be able to hold my heart with me, right? And offer me um, deeper protection and safety and support in that. Like there's so many symptoms that can come up in this. So I just invite you to explore that and really explore where the roots are coming from in that. And then really starting to restore your relationship with God. And part of how we do that, and this is another part of receptivity, is really exposing and revealing your heart to God. So remembering that you're not here to do everything on your own. You don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You get to put down your shields and take off your armor and really let your heart become more open and vulnerable, right? This is a big piece of us being able to receive, is first receiving ourselves, right? Truly receiving. How do you feel? What emotions are arising? What's alive on your heart, and really letting yourself, tend to that and be open to listening, and then also handing some of that over to God, or really all of it. You get to really be in this beautiful relationship with God, and God yearns to be close to your heart, but God also honors free will, right? He honors your choice of exposing your heart to Him or not. So, part of really deepening our receptivity is letting our hearts become more exposed. And we can do that through prayer, which is simply conversation with God, right? Just revealing the fullness of what's alive and, here and present in your heart and your body and your womb, to God, and just being in this beautiful conversation in which you're revealing these deeper things to Him. Um, Another piece is acknowledging and appreciating any and all provision, which is sometimes hard because sometimes we don't always like the provision that has come to us, because sometimes that provision is a no, right? Or not yet. And we're asked, to go into maybe a deeper season of waiting, which can be uncomfortable. And again, kind of counterintuitive to maybe how we've always tried to do things through a more controlling nature. So, this is where we really get to be in the openness and the expression of gratitude and thankfulness more deeply for all of the beautiful gifts, that are here in our life, right? If you're not even able to receive the current beauty in your life, how are you going to be able to receive even more beauty on top of that, right? So this is where in your daily practice, really get present, with yourself, and really offer thanks and gratitude to God, to your body, to your heart, for, giving you the ability to walk and, step your feet onto the earth, or maybe you're on a walk and you just deepen your appreciation of the trees, of the birds, of the flowers that you see, of the sun, the warmth, shining on your face. That's a really powerful practice to do as women. Really being in the gratitude of all of the big and small things that support you in your life, and really feeling and letting that gratitude be filled through your bodily system, and really being in the sensational expression of thankfulness and gratitude, in your day to day. And again, it can be with the smallest of things, right? Like, I got out of bed, I'm able to breathe, right? I have a warm supportive roof over my head. I have food in my fridge. Like, these are all beautiful blessings that God has gifted you. And we get to really expand our capacity to be, in the gratitude and in the presence of those things. The next one is really trusting and feeling your yearnings and longings without attachment or trying to get something get something out of it. So like that energy of neediness. So this is a really deep practice for women. We're going deeper into this inside of Held, my group program that's starting in January or January 11th. So in about a week. And, as feminine beings, we do have such a capacity to desire and to yearn and to long. And that's one of the beautiful things about our nature. And I find as feminine beings, we're always going to have a yearning and a desire for more, but we really get to root that essence of more from a place of devotion instead of a place of neediness and attachment and like that grasping energy again, because that's really penetrative. We want to be the egg. We want to be in this more receptive state. So really letting yourself be in deeper practice with being in, again, the bodily sensation and expression of your desires, of your yearnings, of the longings that are alive on your heart. And then, offering those things to God and trusting that God is holding those with you. And God is making everything beautiful in its time. But again, God's going to work on his timeline, which is really different than your timeline. So this is where we get to be in the expression of our yearning and our longing, but not have an attachment to when it needs to happen or how it needs to happen or what it has to look like, right? It's being really open for the way that God is orchestrating those details, out for you in your life. So it's really, really powerful for us as women to feel, because through feeling is part of how we're widening our capacity to receive, because that's part of how you're receiving yourself on deeper levels. The next one is deepening your devotion. So devotion is a huge thing that I am in practice with in my own life. And I also walk beside women in deepening their own devotional space. And I find, again, especially for women, many of you I know listening have businesses and creative ideas and are birthing some really beautiful things out in the world. And you get to always be checking in, am I doing this from a place of need or, urgency, or because I should? Or am I doing this from a deep, deep place of devotion, of love, of service, right? In my body, from my heart, from my womb? Because when we're moving in a deeper place of devotion, so many more doorways open, right? Because when we're in devotion, we're in our hearts, right? We're really in this expression of true desire to co-create, the vision that God yearns to collaborate, with us on. And again, not making it about you, really making it about, God's mission and really bringing God's glory to earth through your vessel. You are a vessel for that, right? You have a heart so that you can share God's glory and God's vision here. So everything that you do gets to be rooted from this deeper place of devotion, of heart-led service, and of womb-based, remembrance and potency, right? It's really different when we birth things down from our womb than when we birth things from our head, right? And our head is usually coming from the place of, I should do this, or I need to make this amount of money, so I got to do this by this time. Whereas the womb is that more receptive channel, right? She waits. She's resting. She's in that reflective space so that she can actually receive the seed. She's not pushing out. She's not forcing. She's not controlling. She's really being in relationship with God to receive, right, the seed that God wants to gift her. And then when we get that seed, we often then awaken a lot of inspiration and creativity. And again, because God is co-creating with us, God is going to help us in orchestrating the how, right? And it becomes this more easeful process instead of you trying to do it all and force things, which often feels like, for me, just a little bit more like stressful and heavy, and it doesn't feel as good. It's not as fluid, and there's often a lot of resistance that you meet when you're going down that kind of path. So devotion will really anchor you back into the heart, into service, and into love. Nurture your nervous system. This is really important, right? And I did a episode on this, the last YouTube video in the last episode of the podcast, we talked all about, kind of moving through the process of contraction and dilation and opening and really creating more flexibility and resiliency in your nervous system so that you are more easily able to receive. Because again, if we're just being constantly triggered or just moving from our fears or, current perceptions are blocking, the state of easefulness and flow in our life, we're going to have like a hard time with receiving the beauty and the blessings that God wants to gift us. So go back to that episode to learn more about how to create more flexibility and resiliency in your nervous system. And then another big piece of receptivity is really resurrecting your divine innocence and playfulness and fun and creativity and sense of wonder and curiosity. I always say, like, really coming back into relationship with God asks you to be more childlike. It really asks you to connect to that childlike presence that lives and beats within you. And I find, again, receptivity is the same, right? If we're always being serious and, just work, work, work and trying to get all these things done, we're constricting our capacity to receive like the beauty and the blessings that life has to offer us. And I definitely find, especially when I notice myself going into a more like mind-based state and kind of maybe looping in old fears and stories and all the things, that's a really good indicator that I need to get out. I need to change my environment. I need to go laugh. I need to go play. I need to go take a walk in nature. I need to nurture, right? That little girl inside of me who just wants to be seen and held and cherished and loved. And I get to listen to, what does she desire to do? What would turn her on? What would excite her? What would offer her deeper support? So play gets to be a really powerful thing, and it gets to be a really powerful way in which we connect to God, and again also awaken our receptivity. And the last thing that I kind of encourage is your deepening receptivity is, again, to anchor your worth in God, not in the world. So, this is where you're kind of calling all of your energy back into yourself and really asking God to restore and renew your heart, and remember that you are a beloved child and that you get to rest in Him, and that your worth and your wholeness is in God, right? It's not going to be found through the number of clients that you have or how much money you're making or how many projects you're creating or whatever, how great of a mom you are or whatever, all these external things that we kind of attach our worth to. We get to call all of that back and remember that, again, you are inherently and infinitely chosen, cherished, worthy, and whole in God's image. And you are the one who just gets to remember that. And again, so much of that remembrance comes through restoring your relationship with God and remembering that God is love and you are the beloved, and you get to rest within God's frame, and that you are so held, and that God is co-creating and collaborating with you every step of the way. So those are my little ways in which, I help women, and also I walk this path myself in really deepening my own receptivity. I hope that this supported you and was helpful and sparked some remembrance for you and your own body. And again, if you're looking to deepen your own receptivity and really restore the fullness of your feminine design and reconcile your relationship with God and the masculine to reclaim your beloved identity, my one-on-one mentorship is open. I'm still taking, I think, one woman into this space this winter. It is a 4 or 6 month pathway, and you can receive all the details for mentorship through the link below on my website. And I'd be so honored to co-create with you and walk beside you in that way. And we will be having more videos and, podcast episodes on these topics. And I love hearing your reflections and your insights and your revelations. So please reach out to me. You can reach out here. You can reach out on Instagram. You can reach out to me via email to share those things. I love to hear what's alive on your heart. And I always love to hear too what you're yearning to explore more deeply right now in your own journey, so that I can create some powerful content and resources to support you. So again, here for you, witnessing you, walking beside you, and I'll see you next time.